Zombie Reddit, today's story is...
My wife set me up with a false accusation of harassment while she was secretly keeping in touch with her ex. 8 weeks later, her plan backfired in the most devastating way. I'm 35 years old, and I've been married to Hazel for 7 years. I wouldn't say we had a perfect marriage, but it was good until what I'm about to tell you happened. We had the normal disagreements, occasional arguments over unimportant things, but nothing that made me think of leaving her, or that she would leave me. I never gave her any reason to doubt my loyalty. I didn't go out at night without explanation. I didn't send secret messages. I didn't behave suspiciously on social networks. As far as I knew, there was trust between us. Then there's Candice, Hazel's younger sister. She's 30, and the best way to describe her is as nosy. She has a habit of meddling, acting as if she were some kind of supreme moral judge. She loves drama. She's always the first to have an opinion about other people's relationships, convinced that someone is cheating or lying. She has a way of manipulating situations to make herself the center of attention, all under some pretext that helps her justify her actions. I tolerated her because she was my wife's sister, but I never liked her. Now, I can safely say that I detest her. A few weeks ago, Candice took things to an unimaginable level when she picked on me. She organized an elaborate loyalty test at my workplace, something so reckless and inconsiderate that it almost cost me my job. I still tremble with rage when I remember it. It all started like any other day. I arrived at my office, settled in, and started working. Suddenly, a woman I had never seen before approached me. She was attractive, well-dressed, and overly friendly. At first, I thought it was casual conversation, but within minutes, it became clear that she was flirting with me. I immediately set boundaries, showing her my wedding ring. I made it clear that I was married, that I wasn't interested, and I even mentioned my wife several times during the conversation. But she didn't stop at these details. On the contrary, she insisted even more. She looked for excuses to stay. She laughed exaggeratedly at things that weren't funny. And she accidentally brushed her arm against mine, among other things. I realized that something wasn't right. To protect myself, I went straight to human resources and reported the interaction. I didn't want any misunderstandings, and since my company has very strict policies, I thought it was best to be proactive. Human resources took note and assured me that they would handle any problems that arose. I thought the matter ended there. 2 days later, I was called to a meeting with my boss. The same woman had filed a complaint against me. She claimed that I had harassed her, that I had made inappropriate comments to her, and even that I had sent her messages that I never sent. She presented fake screenshots as proof that I had been harassing her. I work in a company with a zero-tolerance policy towards harassment. The accusation alone jeopardized my entire career, not just in this company. I had to face an internal investigation. I was questioned about things that never happened. I had to participate in meetings to prove my innocence. It was humiliating, frustrating, surreal. I had never spoken to this woman outside of our brief encounter in the office, and yet I was defending my reputation against a fabricated accusation. Fortunately, the security cameras saved me. The recording showed that my interaction with her had been minimal and that, of course, I never done anything inappropriate. They reviewed my work messages, and unsurprisingly, there was nothing incriminating because I never sent her anything. In the end, they dismissed the complaint, but not without a warning. Be careful, that's what they told me. Even though I hadn't done anything wrong, I was warned to be careful in the future. That's how damaging a false accusation can be. It leaves a mark, even if it turns out to be a lie. I was furious. I had barely managed to keep my job, all because of a game that someone decided to play at my expense. I didn't have to wait long to find out who was behind it. Candice. I confronted her directly to demand an explanation. If anyone was hoping to make her feel guilty or remorseful, they don't know Candice. She saw it as a test, necessary to find out whether or not I was faithful. She acted as if it were an intelligent experiment, as if I should thank her for giving me the opportunity to prove my loyalty. I went straight home and told Hazel everything, who already knew about the false accusations, hoping she would be as outraged as I was. I hoped she would see how sick what her sister did was. I expected her to defend me, which is what a real wife does, but instead she defended her. She told me I was exaggerating. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had just spent days fighting to clear my name. I almost lost my job, and my own wife was telling me it wasn't that bad, that her sister was just looking out for her. I repeated everything to her again because maybe she hadn't fully understood that her sister had almost ruined my life but she was incapable of comprehending it. I told her directly that Candice had crossed a huge line because this was bordering on dangerous. What am I saying? It wasn't bordering on it, it was dangerous. Hazel just sighed, made a face as if the whole situation was tiring her, and told me to let it go. It was at that moment that I knew something wasn't right. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to think that my own wife would be capable of something like that. But the way she minimized it, it's as if my sister-in-law didn't do this alone, which makes sense, because I don't believe that my sister-in-law made the decision on her own to come and ruin my life. Addition. Many people ask why my work investigated me, even though I had reported the incident to Human Resources beforehand. I understand why that seems strange, so I want to clarify. When I mentioned to Human Resources that this woman approached me, I raised it as a warning, in case something strange happened. But at the time, there was no real incident to report. I didn't know who she was, and I had no reason to think that anyone was setting me up. I only mentioned that her behavior made me uncomfortable, and that I rejected her advances. Human Resources took note, but without a formal complaint, there wasn't much else they could do. Later, when this woman filed her complaint with false evidence, my initial report helped, but the company still had to follow the proper procedures. I guess someone who harasses can report someone else to HR to protect themselves. This isn't my case, but I understand why they investigated. They couldn't just believe me over her without looking into it. Since she presented false evidence, they had to take it seriously until they could prove it was fabricated. That's why I ended up under investigation, even though I had been proactive. And Candice? Unfortunately, nothing happened to her legally, as it wasn't she who made the complaint directly, but her friend. At this point, I'm realizing how deep Hazel's betrayal could be. If she really was involved, then not only did she set me up, but she stood by for days watching me agonize over my job and said nothing. All she cared about was getting the answer she wanted, no matter the damage she caused. Of course, it's just a hunch, but I think I have many reasons to think that she's involved too. Update 1. After my original post, I've been reflecting on everything, even some details I haven't mentioned in my post because it would be too long. It's just that I found it very suspicious that my own wife didn't care about anything her sister did. Hazel finally admitted it, and not only that she knew everything, but that she was the one who had asked Candice to do it. She didn't even seem to feel really guilty. When she said it, she just looked at me and said that she had had a moment of doubt and thought that this was a way to calm her conscience. I stared at her, trying to understand. Her sister almost destroyed my career, and only because she had personal insecurities that she refused to face up to. She said it as if it were nothing, but I couldn't be around her. I hated her. I became completely cold. I stayed at home, but I hardly spoke to her. I stopped eating with her, having any kind of conversation. I could see that she was starting to panic, but I didn't care. She had made her decision. The consequences were natural. Candice, on the other hand, didn't feel the slightest bit of remorse. In fact, she was proud of what she had done. I spoke to her again and asked her if she understood what she had done, how easily everything could have gone wrong. If Human Resources hadn't believed me, I would have lost my job. My entire career could have been destroyed by her test. She just laughed and said that an innocent man wouldn't lose his job. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. It's like driving under the influence of alcohol. Maybe nothing will happen, or maybe it will go very wrong. Talking to my wife's sister again made me realize that they were both very unbalanced. I told Hazel that I couldn't be in the same house as her at the moment. I didn't say I was leaving for good, but I told her I needed space. I packed a suitcase and went to a hotel. Hazel filled my phone with messages, begging me to come back, that I had to forgive her because she just wanted to feel safe in our marriage. And now that she had achieved that, it was time to enjoy that we had a faithful and happy marriage. What she said, and the way she said it, which I don't know how to convey in text, is what made me have doubts. I started to remember the last few months. Hazel had been acting strange since before any of this happened. Sometimes she was more distant, other times too affectionate, as if she were compensating for something. I didn't think anything of it at the time, but now I realized this wasn't about me. She was projecting. So I started to investigate. I didn't have to look far. What I found confirmed everything. One day, with the excuse that I needed something from the house, I went back. If there was one place where I could find evidence of what was happening, it was on her phone or tablet. I was hoping to find more messages with her sister, talking about the trial, But what I found was much worse. I asked for the iPad, saying that I had to check something at work and needed a bigger screen than my phone. Then I went to the bedroom to pick up a few things and asked him to leave me alone, that I didn't need him following me around the house apologizing, as he had been doing. Hazel had been reconnecting with her ex. The messages I found weren't a big deal. There were no dates or photos, but they weren't innocent either. They were full of memories, inside jokes, little comments about how things used to be. It was obvious that they had been talking for a while. And then I discovered that they had met in person. That was all I needed to see. Hazel was feeling guilty. She had been talking to her ex, maybe even cheating on me emotionally or physically, and instead of admitting it, she decided to test me to feel better about herself. I confronted her after she sent some stuff to my phone. At first, she tried to deny it. She said they were just catching up, that it was nothing serious. And I lied to her, saying that I could understand if it was just nostalgia. Finally, she admitted it. She had started talking to him again, and yes, they had met up. But she swore that it hadn't been real infidelity. She insisted that he had never done anything physically, that it was only emotional. For me, that was it. I told her it was over and I wanted divorce. She went crazy because she said I had lied to get her to confess. Well, I did it. I wanted the whole truth at once, not the truth in dribs and drabs. Like when I confronted her about what her sister did. I should see it as a test, like the one she did on me, with the distinction that she failed. She started to cry, begging me to talk, to go to therapy, not to destroy our marriage because of one mistake. But this wasn't just a mistake. She let her paranoia consume her, and instead of being honest, instead of talking to me, she got her sister involved and almost ruined my life. All while she was talking to her ex and having, as far as I could see, an emotional relationship with him. Candice, of course, upped the ante. She tried to make me see as if I was just looking for an excuse to leave, as if I was exaggerating a harmless test. She even said that by wanting to leave Hazel, I was proving her right. At this point, whether or not I'm right doesn't matter to me. I would care about being right if I were to stay in this marriage. Divorce is on the table. I just need to find a lawyer and get it over with. Hazel keeps trying to contact me, all in an attempt to give me an explanation about her ex. But although the ex thing is bad enough on its own, everything he did with his sister is pretty unforgivable. I don't see how he could get back with a woman like that. I even consider that if he hadn't asked his sister for proof, he probably would have deceived me if he hadn't already done so because of his insecurities. For me, this is completely over. We are at the point of no return. Edition. I was so angry when I wrote this that I forgot to mention something important about the woman who falsely accused me at work. I later found out, from Candice no less, that this wasn't just a cover for Hazel. If you remember, the test was to flirt with me and see if I took the bait. That was it, but then the friend ended up making the complaint, which doesn't make sense, at least as far as the test is concerned. I mean, that wouldn't prove anything. It was for her ego. According to Candice, this woman got upset because I rejected her. She thought she could trick me, probably assuming that I, like most men in her mind, wouldn't turn down an opportunity. But when I rejected her without hesitation, she felt embarrassed. And instead of accepting the humiliation, she decided to get revenge. She made up the accusation on the spot because she wanted to punish me for having said no to her. She wanted to make me look bad for making her feel small. These women don't care about ruining me just for their own petty egos. That's why the divorce isn't just about getting away from my wife. It's also about getting away from her entire toxic family and her close friends. Update 2. I officially filed for divorce a few days later. Hazel kept trying to contact me, insisting that we could still work it out, but I blocked her. There are the consequences of her insecurities. It may be a very strange idea for her, almost alien, but if you have insecurities, you should work on them with a professional or with your partner, not with your ex or your sister's manipulator. Divorce is the end, at least for me, but Candice is like, she said, we're not done until I say so, to do something else to screw me over, because her life is so sad she has nothing better to do. A week later, I received an email from another human resources department, this time from a company I hadn't even worked for. It turns out that I had been in the process for a great job opportunity, one that I had applied for months ago and had already forgotten about. I hadn't heard back for a long time, so I assumed they had chosen another candidate. But then, out of the blue, they contacted me to say that they had received some worrying information about my character and wanted to discuss it before proceeding with my application. I didn't even have to ask, I knew. Candice had tried again. She had sent the same fake screenshots, the same fabricated messages that almost cost me my job, but this time she sent them to a potential employer. All because I was leaving her sister. She needed to get back at me, because she wasn't going to let me divorce her so easily. Fortunately, I still had all the evidence from the first incident. The HR reports, the security recordings, everything that had exonerated me. I immediately sent everything to the hiring manager, along with a warning that someone was trying to defame me. I thought they might decide to distance themselves from the situation just to avoid the drama, but instead, they thanked me for my transparency. In fact, they were so impressed with the way I handled the situation that they offered me the job on the spot. Again, I got lucky, and instead of losing out, I ended up with a very good job offer. It's a job offer for a position they need to fill in a few months' time, when the person currently occupying it leaves the company. I think Candice was thinking she was going to get away with it as easily as her friend did, but if I haven't dealt with her until now, it's because I was busy with my divorce. It's not that I was going to let all this pass without a lawsuit, but thanks to her new stupidity, I'm now going to do it sooner than planned. I'll ask for a few days off work to deal with this. I know some will say that all this happened because I didn't take care of Candice before, but it's not as if my days have grown 5 hours longer. As well as living away from home, which makes everything more difficult because I don't have everything I need, I still have to go to work, deal with the divorce, and anything else that life throws at me. It's not like a legal process is like pressing buttons on the bus you walk. That's why I've taken this week off, because I'm going to have meetings with a litigation lawyer to discuss my case. Besides the fact that I need to find somewhere more permanent and take all my stuff with me, I can't need a shirt and make a trip home every time, because the hotel only allows 3 items, and that's if I'm lucky. I know I'm exaggerating, but it just goes to show that it's not the same as living in your own home. I wish I had the money for a 5-star hotel with a dressing room and laundry service, but I could only afford 1 night. But many of those comments must be from teenagers whose mother washes and irons their clothes, while the only concern of the day is leveling up the wizard elephant or whatever teenagers are playing these days. Edition. Reading this makes me feel very old. Bus walk plus magic elephant sounds like something my father would say. Update 3. The divorce took much longer than it should have. When one of the parties doesn't want the divorce, they need to make things more difficult than they are. There are people who don't understand that it's all over and that it's time to let go. Candice, my sister-in-law, at the beginning of my story had a lot to say about what was going on. But as soon as legal action was taken against her, she conveniently decided to remain silent. She did the right thing because, although it will still take some time, I hope to crush her in legal proceedings for what she did. In my personal life, I am now in my new job. The responsibilities are greater, but so are the possibilities, as well as the salary increase, which I am not going to dismiss. The change has been better than I expected, just at a time that suited me perfectly. It helped enormously to change the air. It is in another part of the city, so I am a bit far from where we lived with Hazel. That, however small it may seem, helps to see it as a new beginning. I don't know, it's as if I were living a different life, and my previous life was far back in the past. Now, regarding the gossip about my ex, the same guy who emotionally cheated on me showed up at her house, out of the blue, in the middle of the divorce. It's his house now, because it was a place we were both renting, and I had myself taken off the lease. It turns out he was under the impression that Hazel had been giving up everything for him. So when he finally decided to take the plunge, thinking this was his big moment to revive their relationship, she rejected him. I found out about all this through mutual friends, as he turned up expecting a big romantic reunion, only to be rejected, leaving him humiliated and furious at having wasted his time with his false hopes. If she wasn't even interested in him, I don't understand why he went to all that trouble. You threw away a marriage for nothing. With the divorce papers signed, I now only have one front left, which is Candice. I feel like a general who has fought a great battle on one front, but now has his entire army to finish the war on the other. I can even see myself on my horse galloping across the prairies, arriving at that front with help to defeat the enemy. Of course, the trial won't be so epic, but that's how I see it at the moment. I can tell I feel happier. Update 4. When I entered the end of the trial against Candice, which also included her friend and my ex-wife, although with different responsibilities, I felt a bit like the final description I gave in my previous post. It wasn't as epic because it didn't even go to court, as we were able to reach an agreement between all parties to avoid prolonging the process any further. But for me it was a victory, because getting money out of these women who tried to ruin me with their pathetic excuses was a good compensation. And then I'll tell you that there's something else about this too. For those who are curious, my ex-sister-in-law had to pay me $18,000. while her friend paid $21,000. Both with similar responsibilities, the second for reporting me out of revenge, and the first for doing the same at my current job. While my ex-wife received a penalty of $12,000 for being the one who asked Candies to do it in the first place. It's more than $50,000 for their stupidity, much more than I expected when I sued them. But that's not the end of the agreement we reached. They all agreed not to contact me for any reason, because if they do, we can go back to court and I could sue for double the money, keeping what I've already obtained. That means potentially another $100,000. Not only could I earn more money that way, but I would also avoid any kind of contact with them. Although, beyond the money, which of course is important, seeing the faces of the three of them signing the papers that day was what I enjoyed the most. Candies and her friend were angry like you can't imagine, while Hazel seemed more sad. And that's it. I have nothing more to say. I just want to say thank you because they have been here from my first publication to the last.